There comes a time when a man must forget. Whether that be what he ate for breakfast that morning or what the Konami code was. Every man must forget. They often forget the most trivial of things. But it is the most accosting thoughts, the ones that cause the most pain, that a man chooses to forget more, to rid himself of such thoughts. But how can a man forget? He knows not how to forget, yet nor does he want to. By keeping these thoughts in his head, it provides him with a way of fighting back. By fighting back, he is in more control of his own sanity, instead of being caught in a constant loop. To avoid this constant loop, he often drowns himself in...
Hey, just came to let you know that your front door's open.
He often drowns himself in his emotions in order to hide his true feelings.
Who's talking?
The narrator. As I was saying, in his own emotions, he must...
Could this wait a bit? I kind of have things to do here.
Aw, come on, I was just getting to the good part.
Look, I understand that, but nobody really wants to hear a monologue, and I'm doing everybody a favor.
Wait a second, who is everybody?
Just shut up. Hey, Luigi.
Oh look, it's you. What are you doing here?
Just came to see how you were doing. So how have you been?
I've been better.
Are you okay?
I don't know.
What's in the cup?
I just grabbed whatever was in the fridge.
It's not alcohol, is it?
No, it's not alcohol. It's, chocolate milk, I think.
Okay, so you're not drinking, but what's the problem?
I'm just irritated.
This doesn't have anything to do with the next game, does it?
Oh, you have no idea.
Oh, come on. It couldn't have been that bad.
I don't even know what to think of dolphins anymore.
Well, I played the game too, so tell me about it and let me help you out.
Help me? I don't even trust you. You tried to blackmail me.
Hey, I was trying to help you, okay? Now, looking back on it now, I regret what I did. I don't want us to be enemies, Luigi. I just want us to be friends. I feel bad about it. And I kept my word, too. So tell me what happened and I can...
Hold on a moment. Didn't you say you burnt that paper?
I did.
Well, there isn't exactly video footage of that, so for all we know, you probably kept it, and we'll use it at the next opportunity.
Anyway...
But you had just shot the narrator!
Fourth walls are being broken every day, and you're caring about me shooting the narrator?
But you can't just fix your problems by shooting them!
Look, narrators are a dime a dozen. You're fine.
Whatever you say. I still don't trust you.
I understand you don't trust me. And to be honest, I didn't burn the piece of paper.
No, wait a moment. You said you were going to burn it.
But, before you jump down my throat, I ripped that thing up into a million pieces. I dumped some pieces into every recycling bin along the city. Chances are, nobody's going to be able to find it.
Against my better judgment, I'm not gonna trust you this time. Don't make me regret it, okay?
Don't worry, I understand completely. So, tell me what happened.
Okay. It started after I got the voting results from the last video. Books are so stupid. Oh, must be the voting results for the next video. I sure hope it's a Spyro. I've always been wanting to play that. I heard it was pretty... You people are so predictable. Ecco the Dolphin's a little old. It was for the Sega Genesis. Where did I put that again? It's just at the attic. No, I cannot do this. It's not that hard. But just to be on the safe side, we should probably go to the backstory while I go get the Genesis. To begin, Ecco the Dolphin was made by a man named Ed Annunziata. Alongside him for the game were a small group of programmers, and the composer and best friend Spencer Nilsson.
However, even though Ed made the game, he didn't exactly own it. That right would go to the ever-so-incompetent Sega, specifically Sega of America. The game was going to be released on the Sega Genesis.
There were a lot of concerns on whether Ecco would be successful or not, considering that Sonic the Hedgehog came out the year before.
Sega was also worried about the difficulty implied into the game, in which Ed said he had the reason for it. He claims, "I was paranoid about game rentals and kids beating the game over the weekend, so I, made it hard."
Despite the game's difficulty though, the game itself was a commercial success. It even spawned a sequel, known as Ecco 2, The Tides of Time.
So despite Sega's incompetence, Ecco the Dolphin was released on July 29th, 1993.
So after some consideration, I decided that I liked the way I reviewed Dark Souls 2, so that's how I'm going to be doing it for all the games from here on out. Maybe I'll do some based on its story, but I like this idea a little better. So I'm going to review Ecco the Dolphin on 4 things: the gameplay, the soundtrack, its infamous difficulty, and its story. Once again, leave the video now if you don't want to be spoilers, because there will be spoilers in this video. So I finally dusted off the Genesis, and believe me when I say that took a while. Before we get into the first aspect of this game, let's go start up the game and see what the appeal is exactly.
Huh, this actually isn't too bad. I can see where the appeal came from. Nice colors, a good soundtrack, somewhat tight controls, but I think I can understand this. What? Oh, that's apparently sonar. How high in the sky can you fly? Well, might as well try it. I heard the acrobatic flips in this game were really...
A cute game about a dolphin.
I'll be able to explain what just happened better once we get to the story aspect, but for now let's focus on the gameplay. Ecco the Dolphin is pretty much an adventure game with some puzzle elements involved in it. The main goal of every level is to reach the exit. You will move Ecco by using the control stick. There are 3 different actions you can perform with the buttons. There is a button to speed up your movement, a button that does a charge attack, which is Ecco's only attack in the game, and the sonar button, which allows you to interact with creatures, and to stun some particular ones. The puzzles in this game vary. For the most part, you will be dealing with these items called glyphs, which will block your path unless you find a particular key glyph throughout the level.
Despite the fact that you'll see the same puzzles multiple times in most levels, they always switch it up with every area you go to, so it's not always the same thing.
The key glyphs in this game are few and far in between. Since the levels themselves are so complex, you're forced to use the map and memorize the location of every one of them, just in case you die.
The controls themselves are a bit of a mixed blessing. People have often said that the controls themselves were responsive and every time you died it was your fault. Which is true for the most part, but some of the controls are really tight and unresponsive, making some levels a bit more annoying than they need to.
That and maybe some of the puzzles could have been a little better. I would delve deeper, but unfortunately there's a lot to cover in the gameplay. Instead of taking too much time, I'm gonna move on to the soundtrack.
There aren't a lot of tracks into this game, but they are pretty atmospheric. A lot of them actually capture the theme of what this game is about. Despite the fact that there are a lot of beautiful things in the ocean, the game has a very eerie theme to it. You never know what you're going to see under the ocean, and that soundtrack definitely captures the atmosphere really well.
To set an example, let me play some tracks from early on in the game to about midway through. I would play some of the ones from later on in the game, which are actually the best ones, but I plan on spoiling those only in the story aspect. So here is the music from Ecco the Dolphin. In my own honest opinion, as much as I like every song in this game, the title theme, which was the one you heard previously, is probably my favorite tune in the game. Anyway, let's move on to the game's difficulty.
I did get annoyed with the difficulty at some moments, but it's actually quite fun. It provides me with the challenge to understand the level better and find a different way of going through it. That way when I beat it, I feel a little more accomplished.
There are a few aspects on why the game is considered difficult. One of them involves how complex all the levels are. Some of them are just little challenges, like finding key glyphs or why can't I jump over this wall. I'm serious, this is the toughest jump in the game. Why does this exist? But without a doubt, the toughest part about this game has got to be the enemies. Every time you are hit by an enemy in this game, you're only invulnerable for about half a second, meaning you can get comboed over and over again. And if you die at any part during the level, you have to go all the way back to the beginning. Oh, and let me explain this. The bar on the top represents Ecco's health gauge. Every time he gets hit by an enemy, it goes down, but it can be replenished by eating fish. And the bar on the bottom represents Ecco's air gauge. Ecco is a mammal after all, so you have to keep an eye out for air pockets. If your air runs out, you slowly lose health, and eventually will drown.
And considering the fact that there aren't a lot of air pockets in this game, you need to be mindful of where they are and use them to your advantage when you can.
So while you're focusing on the enemies, you might not be paying so much attention to your air and health gauge, so you need to keep an eye on them. And speaking of the enemies,
the enemy variety is simple, but it's actually pretty good considering the amount of areas in this game. With every area you go to in this game, there's always something new, which means that you'll have to understand how those enemies work. You might have something simple like pufferfish. You might have to deal with annoying things like crabs. And then there are the enemies that just make you go... Is that a giant seahorse? Giant seahorses are enemies in this game, apparently.
that's basically the gist of what the difficulty is all about. Now let's focus on the game's last portion, the story.
How am I supposed to explain the story to this game? I will tell you that it is probably the most far-fetched thing in this game. But I'm gonna explain it anyway.
If you couldn't tell by the intro, this game isn't exactly a generic game about a dolphin. The story goes as Ecco tries to save his pod after they get magically sucked away. After looking around his home bay, an orca tells him to find a creature known as the Big Blue. Ecco navigates his home bay a little bit more before finally going out into the open ocean to go to the Arctic where the Big Blue went.
I love the sliding mechanics on this level, by the way.
Ecco finds the Big Blue, who is a blue whale, obviously. He tells Ecco that the storm that took his pod occurs every 500 years, but he doesn't know why it happens. So he sends Ecco to look for a creature known as the asteroid, who is apparently the creator of all of marine life. Ecco follows the Big Blue's instructions and eventually finds the asteroid, who appears to be a double helix.
It's a little strange having this kind of thing in a game like this, but it makes sense if it's the creator of life, I guess.
The asteroid seems to remember Ecco for some reason. Without much explanation, the asteroid says he can help Ecco by giving him the power to save his pod, but he must help him first. He tells Ecco he has to go into the past. To do that, he has to go to the city of Atlantis, where they apparently built a time machine? It will take Ecco 55 million years back into the past, where he can bring a globe to the asteroid. Let me just point out one more thing.
Time machines. Time machines.
And a time machine there is. Upon arriving in Atlantis and finding the time machine, all you have to do is hit it with your sonar. What follows is one of my favorite musical cues. So like the asteroid said, Ecco appears 55 million years into the past, before dolphins even existed. These levels introduce new challenges, as well as new enemies, such as Dunkleostus, Nautiloids, giant seahorses, the ever-so-annoying trilobites, oh, and the asteroid 55 million years in the past. This is considered one of the game's 2 boss fights, and may I just say, it is very annoying. To defeat him, you have to hit 4 globes of the same color. Believe me when I say that it's a lot easier than it sounds. Oh, and he also has attacks that can instantly kill you, because that's fair. But when you eventually beat them, you magically get sent back into the present for some reason. Wait, I think I'm forgetting something from the prehistoric levels. What was it? So after you get back to the present, Ecco goes back to the asteroid and gives him his globe. The asteroid, in turn, gives Ecco new powers to be able to save his pod. He tells Ecco to go back to Atlantis and use the time machine to return to the point where his pod got kidnapped in the whirlpool.
So after using the time machine a second time, Ecco re-emerges back at the point at the beginning of the game, where he was swimming around with his pod. All you have to do at this part is do what you did at the beginning, and jump up into the air. But this time, Ecco will get sucked in the whirlpool along with his pod. So then you get to the last levels and discover the true cause of what had kidnapped Ecco's pod. It was technology? Let me point out that this is indeed an auto-scrolling level. One where you have to deal with a bunch of enemies that will do crazy damage to you. It's over in about 2 minutes though. But then you reach the level that everybody hates. Welcome to the machine.
This level gave kids nightmares. And to be truthful, I don't blame them.
Welcome to the Machine is well known by Ecco fans to be the hardest level in the game. It is a 6-minute long auto-scrolling gauntlet. Let me quickly point out some things I like about this before I go on to a rant. 1. It's definitely a nice change from what we were accustomed to previously in the game. The level design definitely works with the title of the level. 2. You fight aliens, which are called the Vortex for some reason. And 3. The music for this level is one of the best in the game. Now I really want to like this level more because it's so original in every way.
But just why does this have to be an auto-scrolling level? If they had introduced auto-scrolling levels earlier, this wouldn't be so much of a problem. But after going through more than 20 levels having to navigate yourself around, you are suddenly thrown into an auto-scrolling level. It caught me a bit off guard, to say the least.
Combine the fact that all the aliens in this level do crazy amounts of damage, and the fact that if you die at any point during this level, whether you're at the beginning or near the end, you go right back to the beginning of the level.
Finally navigated Welcome to the Machine, which I will say took me a very long time. So let's go see what this last battle is all about. What the This is considered a kids game? Forget Welcome to the Machine, this is the reason why kids had nightmares.
This hideous monstrosity is the Vortex Queen. She is the leader of the Vortex species that you fought in Welcome to the Machine, and is the main reason why Ecco's pod disappeared. Before I go into detail on how you beat her, just listen to the music. What you saw just there is the way to beat her. To win, you have to shoot out both of her pupils, charge into her jaw 9 times to break it off, then all you have to do is charge into her head until she releases all of the creatures she sucked up, and you can see the ending of the game.
Oh, and before I forget, if you die during this final battle, you go right back to the machine.
Oh, and remember that regenerative health you had before?
It's gone.
So there you have it, a cute story about a dolphin.
But, in spite of all of this crazy stuff that happens in the end, this story is actually pretty unique. Definitely something I wouldn't have expected in a game about dolphins. Okay, I think I have an idea of how I'm going to review this game. So let's go review it. So, Ecco the Dolphin. A game about the dolphin that looks charming and cute, but below the surface there is something truly eerie about it. Before I continue on the review, I can see where the popularity for this game came from. I really do. I mean, the game spawned a sequel and 2 spin-offs, but that just begs the question, what happened to Ecco 3? Oh, right. Let's commence on what was good about Ecco the Dolphin. As I have said before, the variety of levels is definitely worth noting, and you have to understand the level before you progress forward. Whether it's in the lagoon, to the Arctic, to the prehistoric times, heck, even Welcome to the Machine itself has a very different level design, and it does its job well. This next point kind of coexists with all the other points I'm going to make on this review. The difficulty is extremely tolerable. Very, very annoying, but tolerable. I will have to give Ed props. If this game was easy, this probably would have been a bad thing. It's pretty hard, but there are some easy concepts to it, and heck, there's even some things that help you out, so it's not that difficult when it comes down to it. Who am I kidding? It's difficult no matter what. But it's a good thing, okay? The story itself is completely far-fetched, but it's unique in its own way. I'm gonna admit, when I played this game, I did not expect what I was going to be going through. It's definitely original in its own way. And finally, the music in this game is very atmospheric and works well with the game and its levels as well. Granted, I wish there was a wider abundance of songs being played, but they got the job done. Now, before I continue, I'm going to mention that there are only 2 things that I did not like about Ecco the Dolphin, and these are huge. These are going to largely impact the game's final score, so please, respect my decision here. The 2 bad things for Ecco the Dolphin. I'm gonna start off by saying that the game's controls are way too tight and unresponsive when it comes down to it. Granted, you can go in the 4 directions in every diagonal way, which is pretty simple in its own right. Sonar and attacking enemies is pretty good too. But I have found that the controls were not as responsive as they could be. I've had the moments when I've been pushing the control stick in a diagonal direction and the game treats it as if I'm going to the side. This made some levels a little more infuriating than others, especially the auto-scrolling levels. Which is the second thing I do not like about Ecco the Dolphin. The auto-scrolling levels either should not have existed in this game, or they should have been built along into it. I normally don't have a problem with auto-scrolling levels, but let me point out something to you. The first auto-scrolling level, the tube, is about 2 minutes long and not that difficult once you understand it. Welcome to the Machine, on the other hand, is 6 minutes long. 6 minutes! Combined with the game's difficulty, and that means every time you die during this level, at any point of it, you have to go right back to the beginning. If there were a few auto-scoring levels early on in the game or at certain points, then I probably wouldn't have a problem. I would have been built up to it by now. Yes, I think the level is perfect with the auto-scrolling, but it just doesn't seem right to suddenly push you into it. Let me put it this way. Imagine you're playing Dark Souls and you're progressing through the level at your own rate. You get to the boxer and walk through, and instead of fighting a boss like you're expecting, it is a Sudoku puzzle. That was a pretty bad analogy now that I think about it. So, in conclusion, Ecco the Dolphin is a very unique game in its own way, different from other games of its caliber, and definitely stands out amongst the rest. It just had a few problems keeping it from being better than it really needed to. Ecco the Dolphin gets a 6 out of 10. I didn't hate the game, but there were some things that were keeping me from truly enjoying it more than I wanted to. Like I said before, I really like how eerie it was as I progressed. If you like a very unique story with some pretty interesting gameplay, then this might be the game for you. But with the game's tight and unresponsive controls, combined with the irritating elements of this game, prevents it from getting a 7 out of 10. Nevertheless, I had fun playing this. Definitely worth a try if you're interested. I can really only hope that Ed eventually gets the series back into his own hands and makes Ecco 3 to finish it off. Because let's be honest, Sega's not doing anything with it, so why do they hold on to it? So once again, I hope you enjoyed the video. In regards to the next game I'm going to review, I haven't exactly done Wii or Wii U games, so that's going to be the next 3 choices for you. Should I review Xenoblade Chronicles, The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD, or The Last Story? Leave a comment telling me which game you want me to play, and I'll get right on it. But whatever the case, I'm a Luigi, and this has been a Luigi review. Now, if you'll excuse me, I feel quite confident that I beat this game. I'm gonna go start up Ecco the Dolphin 2 and see how that is. See you later.
So, what was the problem? Well, I started playing Ecco 2. Look, I know the game is often considered to be the same as the first Ecco, but the level designs are all nice. The music is just as good as the first one. Yeah, it could be considered to be a copy, but hey, it's still a unique game in its own way. That isn't what bugged me. And before you say anything about that game's story, know that it's just as far-fetched as the first one, but hey man, it's still a great story. Tubes of Medusa. Oh. Right. I had tried as hard as I could, but I couldn't do it. I missed my birthday because of that level. I'm sorry. I need a drink. There you go. Thanks. Nobody has had a nightmare until they have played that level. You got that right. Whatever the case, though. To Ecco. To Ecco.
And so they drank their chocolate milk. trying to forget. But they cannot. For no amount of chocolate milk can help you forget something amazing. Especially if what they're trying to forget is the amazing story about a time-traveling dolphin. Oh. Apparently I'm not dead. I bet everybody thought I was dead, though. I gotta say, this Luigi guy makes too many long videos. He needs to start making them shorter. I wonder who that other guy is, though. He looks like such a nerd. I wonder when they're gonna pay me, though. They say they'd do it before this episode was over, but I haven't gotten anything. Wait a second, hold on. Isn't that the...